President Donald Trump's statements regarding Greenland at the World Economic Forum in Davos have captured global attention and sparked intense debate about American foreign policy, presidential rhetoric, and international diplomacy. Over the course of more than an hour, Trump addressed his long-standing interest in Greenland, clarifying that while he seeks to negotiate the acquisition of the territory, he does not plan to use military force to do so. This statement marked a critical moment in an ongoing saga that has raised questions about U.S. intentions, the limits of executive authority in foreign relations, and the reaction of European allies. Greenland, an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark, is geographically significant, strategically positioned in the Arctic with rich natural resources, and has historically hosted American military bases, particularly during World War II and the Cold War. Trump framed his interest in Greenland by invoking historical precedent, citing U.S. military presence during times when Denmark was occupied or when the region was used for strategic purposes. His references to history, however, have been challenged by historians and international analysts who argue that the United States never claimed sovereignty over Greenland and that all previous activities were conducted with the consent of Denmark. In his speech, Trump emphasized negotiation rather than coercion, repeating multiple times that he would not use military force to seize the territory. This clarification was significant, as previous reports and statements had led some to speculate that the president might pursue a more aggressive approach. By explicitly rejecting the use of force, Trump attempted to reassure both domestic and international audiences that his interest in Greenland would be pursued through diplomatic channels, though the statement also maintained the provocative nature of his long-term ambitions. The speech was not limited to Greenland alone. Trump criticized NATO and several European allies, including Denmark and Canada, questioning their contributions to collective security and the value of transatlantic partnerships. His comments suggested a transactional view of alliances, framing U.S. support as contingent on reciprocal action and effectiveness. These remarks elicited concern from international policymakers as they challenged established norms of alliance behavior and mutual obligation. In Greenland itself, residents expressed skepticism and unease. While the president's repeated assurances against military action were noted, many observers and local citizens remained concerned about the potential for U.S. pressure, economic influence, or political interference. The prospect of negotiations over territorial sovereignty sparked debate about the balance between strategic interest and respect for local autonomy. Analysts note that Greenland's population is overwhelmingly opposed to any transfer of sovereignty to the United States, and the speech highlighted the tension between presidential ambition and local consent. The broader context of Trump's speech also includes his history of employing provocative rhetoric on international matters, often blending historical references, economic threats, and blunt assessments of allies' capabilities. In Davos, the president criticized NATO, suggesting that the alliance has historically benefited Europe more than the United States, and implying that member nations have failed to adequately share the burden of defense. This criticism, coupled with the Greenland discussion, reinforced a pattern of challenging long-standing diplomatic assumptions and signaling a preference for unilateral or highly negotiated U.S. action. Economically, Trump's remarks hinted at potential leverage through trade or tariffs, though he did not explicitly link economic coercion to Greenland in this particular speech. The strategic importance of Greenland is tied to its Arctic location, which offers potential for military observation, control over emerging shipping lanes due to melting ice, and access to natural resources such as rare earth minerals. These factors underscore why Greenland has attracted American interest historically and why Trump's statements resonated beyond mere political posturing. International reaction to Trump's Davos address has been mixed. European leaders, particularly those whose allies were directly criticized, noted the unconventional nature of the comments and expressed concern about the implications for diplomatic relations. Denmark reaffirmed its sovereignty over Greenland and emphasized the importance of respecting the autonomy of its territory. Analysts point out that the speech, while dramatic, did not signal any immediate change in the status of Greenland, but did highlight the potential for tension in U.S.-European relations. From a domestic perspective, Trump's address played into familiar themes of boldness and negotiation, portraying himself as a leader unafraid to challenge allies and pursue strategic interests. The repetition of phrases such as, "I won't use force," served both to reassure critics and to emphasize his control over potential military action, a dual messaging strategy characteristic of his public speaking style. In terms of diplomatic signaling, the speech functioned on multiple levels. First, it reassured audiences that the United States was not planning an invasion, a critical clarification given previous speculation. Second, it sent a clear message to European allies that the United States expects reciprocal behavior and active engagement in security commitments. Third, it positioned Trump as a negotiator willing to assert American interests in high-profile and historically significant areas. Media coverage highlighted the contrast between Trump's rhetoric and conventional diplomatic norms. Commentators noted that few U.S. presidents have directly criticized allied leaders by name at forums such as Davos, making this speech particularly notable. Leaders such as Emmanuel Macron and Canadian officials received pointed attention, underscoring Trump's tendency to personalize geopolitical critique. Analysts cautioned that while the speech did not constitute a policy action, the potential impact on alliance cohesion, European strategic planning, and Greenlandic perceptions is substantial. The historical framing of Greenland, referencing World War II and the Cold War, reflects Trump's pattern of invoking precedent to justify current policy ambitions. By highlighting past American military presence, the president sought to normalize U.S. interest in the territory and establish a sense of historical legitimacy. Critics argue that this approach misrepresents historical agreements, as Denmark retained sovereignty and Greenlandic self-rule was never undermined by American actions. The Greenland episode illustrates broader themes in Trump's foreign policy approach, a blend of assertiveness, historical justification, negotiation emphasis, and public rhetoric aimed at both domestic and international audiences. Observers note that even when force is explicitly rejected, the persistence of interest in territorial negotiation creates a backdrop of uncertainty and pressure for other states, which may affect diplomatic interactions and negotiations in subtle ways. In Davos, the speech also served as a platform for Trump to reinforce his broader worldview regarding international alliances, economic leverage, and American strategic interests. His critiques of NATO and European allies reflect a transactional approach to diplomacy, where commitments are evaluated based on perceived benefits to the United States rather than shared values or historical obligations. For Greenland, the implications are direct and tangible. Even absent military action, the mere public signaling of U.S. interest introduces a variable into local and regional political calculations. Greenlandic authorities, Danish officials, and neighboring European states must navigate the intersection of local autonomy, treaty obligations, and potential American negotiation strategies. Furthermore, Trump's public statements at Davos may influence perceptions in global markets, particularly concerning Arctic resources, shipping lanes, and geopolitical stability. Investors and policymakers closely monitor signals from high-profile leaders, and the emphasis on Greenland adds to broader considerations of U.S. strategic priorities in the Arctic. Importantly, the speech demonstrates the continuing role of personal rhetoric in shaping international perceptions. Trump's repeated declarations, his stylistic choices, and the framing of historical precedent all contribute to a narrative designed to assert authority, demonstrate negotiating power, and influence both allies and domestic audiences. While the long-term policy outcomes remain uncertain, the immediate effect is heightened attention to Greenland as a strategic issue and intensified scrutiny of U.S.-European relations. From a security perspective, Trump's clarification that force will not be used mitigates immediate risks of conflict, but does not eliminate strategic tension. NATO allies, particularly those with Arctic interests, must assess the potential for U.S. negotiation strategies to intersect with regional defense planning, resource management, and geopolitical influence. Analysts emphasize that this dynamic illustrates the delicate balance between signaling interest, maintaining credible deterrence, and respecting international norms. In conclusion, President Trump's Davos speech regarding Greenland represents a complex interplay of rhetoric, strategy, historical framing, and international signaling. By clearly stating that the United States will not use military force while simultaneously expressing ambition to acquire Greenland, the president communicated a dual message of restraint and assertiveness. The speech highlights the challenges of U.S. diplomacy in the Arctic, the sensitivities of allied relationships, and the enduring importance of strategic territories in international relations. Observers, analysts, and policymakers will continue to dissect the implications, weighing the potential for negotiation, the perception of U.S. intentions, and the broader impact on global geopolitics. While the speech does not indicate immediate action, it underscores the president's approach to foreign policy, a combination of dramatic rhetoric, historical justification, and strategic signaling designed to assert American interests on the world stage. The Greenland episode, in particular, will likely remain a reference point for discussions of U.S. Arctic policy, presidential communication, and the interaction between domestic political messaging and international diplomacy. In essence, the speech exemplifies the modern challenges of leadership in a highly interconnected, media-driven world where statements, historical framing, and public perception intersect to influence policy, alliances, and strategic calculations.